December 18th, 2015. The quarantine zone in the middle of Manhattan, later known as the Dark Zone, was abandoned by the government and the Joint Task Force. They left behind weapons, equipment, thousands of civilians, and the first wave of division agents. Although it is assumed that the majority of the first wave were killed or went rogue, there are a number that just simply disappeared. What we do know is that some of them managed to escape the quarantine zone and make their way to the outside of Manhattan Island. In this series, we're going to follow these agents and speculate on what happened to them based on their psychological profiles and the location of where their watches and other information was found. Michael Trudeau's watch and ID can be found underground in the south of the Chelsea district. As a child, Michael was a chess prodigy. He attended Tulane University on a scholarship, where he graduated with a double major in physics and game theory. From here he moved into the financial sector, but 5 years later, he quit. He followed his natural talent and became a professional poker player. In his career he won 8 public tournaments, but he made his real living in high-stakes private games. Michael thrives on high risk and competition, but this isn't to say that he's reckless, quite the opposite really. He's a calculated individual, only taking risks after careful consideration of the odds involved. When the percentages appear in his favour, he'll ruthlessly seize the opportunities as they present themselves. Michael is a master strategist and an expert of reading other people's motives and intentions. As a former college decathlete, his physical abilities alongside his high intelligence make him a valuable asset for the Strategic Homeland Division. Michael's watch and ID can be found underground in the south of the Chelsea district. The area is under the control of a number of different rioter gangs, taking the opportunity to gain control. The water damage to his ID shows that he's been down there for a while. Given that he's such a calculated individual, he was likely taking refuge, waiting and listening into the comms before making his next move. He was very close to Camp Hudson, where he was likely making his way back to. But given that it has now become public knowledge that a large number of the First Wave have turned their backs on the government and gone rogue, perhaps he was waiting to see if any other First Wave agents turned up before making his next move, as it was unknown how he would be treated upon entering the camp. Unknown to him, his hideout was also an area that had been targeted by the cleaners in an attempt to cut off the water supply. Potentially he was overwhelmed by the hostile faction while defending his position and the water pumps, or maybe the cleaners forced his hand. He shed any indication of being a division agent and escaped, moving towards Camp Hudson disguised as a civilian in need, where he's been holding up ever since. Eleanor Jenkins' watch and ID can be found in Hell's Kitchen, next to the Clinton district. Eleanor was a typical military brat, as her father was a serviceman who moved the family frequently. Stationed in Germany, her mother was a German national. Born in a military base, Eleanor picked up the local languages everywhere they went. By the time she graduated high school, she was fluent in 8 languages. Eleanor studied at Barnard College, a private women's liberal art college in Manhattan. Right out of college, she joined an international consulting firm. From there, she moved into the UN to serve as a translator. Eleanor has been married once, but has now been divorced for 6 years. As a deeply introverted individual, she doesn't trust easily and is completely unsentimental about co-workers. Eleanor avoids conflict wherever possible. Careful and methodical, she prefers to observe and then problem solve. But she isn't to be taken as a pushover. Preferring hobbies like rock climbing and martial arts, she is more than capable of defending herself if required. After things started falling apart in the Dark Zone, Eleanor ran west to gather her bearings. As a deeply introverted individual, she was comfortable dropping off the grid and keeping to herself, as at this time it was difficult to know just who to trust. Eleanor took to the rooftops, where she would have a good vantage point of the goings-on around her on the streets below. Dropping her communications and tracking equipment that could have her found, she is likely long gone from the area, but could still be hiding out in Hell's Kitchen and Clinton districts of the city. Eleanor is likely still hiding out in the western side of Manhattan, observing and taking notes on what has been happening over this event in New York City. If the SHD ever find Agent Eleanor Jenkins, she is likely to have vast amounts of valuable intel on the hostile faction movements in western Manhattan. Jeremy Carmichael's watch and ID can be found in Hudson Yard. Jeremy has had experience as a public defender for the last 6 years. He has represented criminal defendants from many different backgrounds and cultures. Through this line of work, he has a deep understanding of criminal psychology as well as a broad knowledge of criminal activity, organisation and techniques. Jeremy has a stubborn streak. He took fewer plea deals than any other lawyer in the public defender's office. He prefers confrontation to compromise. His belief in clients is often used to justify his approach. This is an asset as well as a potential risk. Jeremy thrives on pressure. The more difficult the situation, the more committed he is to solving it. However, he has the occasional tendency to push the limit beyond what is necessary when a less confrontational solution could be found. Jeremy Carmichael's watch and ID was found in a secluded area of the Hudson Yards. This was a considerable distance from the dark zone, where they were originally left for dead, and the trail to find this information was moving further away from the dark zone and more towards the west side piers. There were no signs of struggle, and the hostile factions were few and far between. Perhaps he was fleeing the situation, and when he learned of the other agents going rogue and that they were hunting down others that refused to join, he stripped himself of his watch so he couldn't be tracked down. However, this doesn't really work in with his profile, as a stubborn individual that thrives on pressure and confrontation. Perhaps he was moving towards Camp Hudson to regroup with other agents, though this doesn't necessarily explain why he removed his watch when he was so close. However, the more troubling likelihood is that he had joined up with Arankina and was working towards future plans in the West Side Piers. He may have decided to shed his watch when it was apparent that the division had learned of the actions of the First Wave Division agents, to reduce the chance of being tracked down, particularly as he was working towards an objective that Kina didn't want the division to know about until much later on. LaMARCUS Henry's watch and ID can be found on the edge of a Hudson Yard district. LaMARCUS Henry was a former police officer who worked in South Central Los Angeles as part of a street gang task force. This street experience would bring real-world relevance to his academic studies. LaMARCUS holds a BA in anthropology from UCLA and a doctorate in sociology from Berkeley University, where his thesis examined the social organization of urban street gangs. As a noted expert in criminal behavior, he brings an invaluable level of expertise to the division. Experience as a police officer gives him exceptional situational awareness. LaMARCUS knows how to diffuse violent situations or meet with force if the situation demands it. However, empathy for and understanding of the criminal subculture could cut both ways. LaMARCUS Henry's watch and ID was found in the Hudson Yard district, right on the edge of the island. It's likely that he fled the dark zone not long after the JTF withdrew. It's possible that on his way to the edge of the island he ran into a number of rioter gangs. Using his expertise, he may have chosen to defuse the situation and work towards bringing peace back to this area of the city. His empathy and understanding of the situation these people are in may have taken him away from his original goals of falling back and regrouping with the JTF and other division agents. But why drop his watch and ID? It is possible that one of the gangs turned on him. The car parking building where it was found was under heavy control by the rioters. But alternatively, LaMARCUS was also directly in the path of Jeremy Carmichael on his way up to the West Side Piers. LaMARCUS and Jeremy may have run into each other. The meeting could have gone a couple of ways. Jeremy was either able to convince LaMARCUS to join Kina's cause, or LaMARCUS was simply convinced to come along without knowing the full extent of Jeremy's mission and his allegiance to Aaron Kina and his rogues. Either way, LaMARCUS removed his watch and left the area. Whether or not he agreed to join Kina, or was killed after turning it down, it's unlikely that we'll see or hear any more of Agent LaMARCUS Henry. As stated earlier, what happened to these agents is purely speculation. Reading into events that occurred close by, story missions, intel, psychological profiles, these can all give a fairly good indication. But what do you think happened? Next week we'll follow another group of lost First Wave agents and see if we can help close some of the gaps in the intel that we've received so far. Time to do another giveaway. Ubisoft Australia has given me a bunch of Division 1 games to hand out. These are for Xbox One and PlayStation 4. Also included is the limited edition metal case. If you're watching this video, you likely already own the game, but maybe you have a friend or family member who'd like a copy. If you're interested in jumping into the draw, check out the link in the description. I'll draw a winner for each platform in a couple of weeks. I really must thank the awesome people on the screen right now, in particular Devereaux and Foxy. You guys are seriously helping with keeping the channel ticking along. Thanks again. Anyway, that's all from me. Thanks a lot for watching, and I'll see you in the next one. Cheers!